All right. You're listening to America's Voice now. We're back with our fourth and final topic. You know, they just are signing an agreement with Afghanistan about keeping troops over there. And I know that a lot of people kind of want to push this kind of stuff into the back of their minds. But I got to tell you, one of the rules of engagement that they're incorporating into this new agreement is criminal. They're limiting the actions of the U.S. troops and the drones that are in Afghanistan, and the president has agreed to it. And here's what it looks like. This is really bad. If the terrorists or the people that they're in a pitched gun battle with run inside of a dwelling, they're safe. That's it. They call home free, and you can't chase after them. You can't enter the building. The new U.S.-Afghanistan security agreement puts these restrictions into the rules of engagement for American troops, and it makes any Afghan dwelling a virtual safe haven for the enemy. This puts the burden on the U.S. air and ground troops to confirm with certainty that a Taliban fighter is armed before they can fire, even if they're 100% sure the target is the enemy. Now, there's been a lot of cases lately where aerial gunships and the soldiers have been denied permission to fire, even though the targets that they were requesting approval to fire on were armed. And I got to tell you, your president, because he's certainly not mine. He may be the president of the United States of America, but he's a usurper. He's a liar. He's not an American citizen. He doesn't even have a legitimate birth certificate. He doesn't have a legitimate Social Security number. And worse yet, he wasn't born here. So he doesn't have America bound up in his growth and in his youth and in his understanding. He doesn't understand this country, why we live the way we do, why we love freedom and liberty the way we do, and all he's interested in is subverting that. And while he is sitting here beating the crap out of Americans with the EPA and all these regulations and IRS and building dossiers and enemy lists on Americans, he's giving the enemy free rein to do whatever they want at our cost and expense, at the cost of the lives of our soldiers. I got to tell you, that's treasonous. You're betraying your own soldiers. If we can't have an agreement that allows our troops to act as a functional war machine, then we don't belong there. It's that simple. John Kerry is the guy who's negotiating this for us. I wouldn't let John Kerry negotiate a speeding ticket for me. It prohibits all U.S. troops from entering dwellings during combat. And Obama made the vow that he would allow this and approve it directly to Karzai. Here's what it says. And here's what Obama said in a letter. And he put it in writing now. This is not my words. These are President Barack Obama's pledge, directly written in a letter to President Hamid Karzai, the Afghan leader. U.S. forces shall not enter Afghan homes for the purposes of military operations, except under extraordinary circumstances involving urgent risk to life and limb of U.S. nationals. So, what that means is simply this. If there's a kidnapped soldier inside the house, they can go in. But if not, once they enter that building, they don't even have to shut the door. They can stand there in the door and go, nani, nani, foo, foo. Are we involved in a war, or is this a game of tag? Because American soldiers are dying. Men and women are dying and losing their lives, losing their limbs, losing their ability to speak and to think They're losing their eyesight. They're losing their hearing. They're coming back with mental problems because they're watching their friends be blown up and there's not a thing they can do about it. Because after the guy pushes the button or pulls the trigger, he runs inside an Afghan building and he says, "Nani, nani, foo-foo, you can't get me, ha, 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 ha." And you wonder why these guys are coming back with PTSD. Meanwhile, Soldier Joe is sitting there holding his friend and bathed in his blood. The guy who commanded the assault team for SEAL Team 6 had this to say about the security deal. The first people who are going to look at it and review it are the enemy we're trying to fight. It's going to be a document that can be used effectively against us. This is where we either fight or go home. What's happening is we're losing our ability to fight overseas. Now, that's a man whose boots are on the ground. He's not ensconced in some palace in Washington, D.C. He's not making $192,000 or $195,000 a year. He doesn't get free haircuts. He doesn't get cover-ups when he gets caught DWI or bouncing a check or beating up his wife. This is a guy who sleeps in the dirt. This is a guy who is out there probably without a shower for months on it at a time. And he knows that the enemy is going to sit there and take a document like this that our president pledged in writing. U.S. forces shall not enter. Shall not. That means must not, cannot. U.S. forces shall not enter Afghan homes for the purposes of military operations, except under extraordinary circumstances involving urgent risk to life and limb of U.S. nationals. Troops have been complaining for a long time about the meeting the onerous requirements of the prior checklist of rules of engagement. The rules were actually made even more strict in 2010 after the U.S. bombings that killed a couple of civilians over there and a Spec Ops troops raid that went down in some villages and homes. But this is giving every dwelling a free pass, a free ride. Army Colonel Ken Allard, who's now a military analyst, he's retired. Here's what he had to say. "Call me crazy, but what on earth is the point of remaining there under these rules of engagement, much less subjecting American soldiers to another set of restrictions that make sense only in proportion to your distance from the combat zone?" The truth is, this is designed, and how do I say this? I believe that this president and John Kerry understand the value of this agreement and how it benefits the enemy. This is aiding and abetting the enemy. There is absolutely no denying it. And they know that it's going to cost lives for Americans. They know that American young men and American young women are going to be killed as a result of this. And they also know that it's not necessary for them to agree to this. I mean, it's one thing for a commander-in-chief or a military commander to say, I know that by sending my men into this battle, they're going to be killed. It's another thing entirely to say, I know that by sending my men into this battle unarmed, they're all going to be killed. No general would send his men into battle unarmed. And if you want to follow the concept that President Obama is the de facto civil leader of the military and the commander-in-chief, then I got to tell you, he is acting against the best interests of his own soldiers. And he knows it. The problem that we have is that this is designed to kill Americans. I believe that. I believe that Kerry and Obama looked at this, and either one of two conversations went down. You know, Mr. President, this is going to result in the deaths of a lot of American soldiers. Or the conversation went more like this. You know, we can get rid of a lot of soldiers who are well trained and prevent them from coming home where they could potentially do damage here against our tyranny. I'm willing to suggest to you that even if that conversation didn't go down that way, they both understood that that was the real decision made here. I don't believe for a moment that anything is past these people. And when I say these people, I mean everyone in D.C. I'm talking about all of them. I'm talking about these people who are in Congress, the people in the administration, the people in the judicial system, the people in the NSA, the FBI, the IRS, the people in the EPA, and thousands of other extra-constitutional administrative agencies just like them. You are nothing more than collateral damage. And in some cases, you are targeted collateral. I believe that this government is seriously and deeply concerned about the number of hardened veteran combat troops that are in the United States of America, because I believe that they know that this thing is coming to a showdown at some point in the fairly near future. What will generate that? I don't know. My crystal ball is broken, but I can tell you this. This government loading up the DHS, building an army, a domestic army, a standing army against constitutional authorization, is gearing up to go to war against Americans. And I don't say that lightly. Your government is preparing a coup to destroy the United States of America and turn this nation from a constitutional republic into a tyrannical dictatorship. You can apply whatever ism you want to that. Fascism, socialism, communism, I don't even care. That's a debate for another day. But what does matter is that this nation is being turned into an authoritarian totalitarianism or totalitarianship. And they're plotting and they're planning, and FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security and this president, the Veterans Administration, are working actively to strip the firearms rights from returning veterans. Why are they working so hard at that? if not to take those people out of the mix. Why? Because they know how to fight a war. They know how to prosecute a war. The average Joe six-pack who's sitting on his couch eating potato chips, angry at what's going on, he doesn't. If you've never had military experience, you don't know how to prosecute a war. You can sit there and say, yeah, I got me a shotgun, I'm protecting my house no matter what. But the truth of the matter is, you don't understand the real tactics that will be used against you. Military men do. Military women do. Hundreds of generals, hundreds of senior executive military officers have been purged in the last couple of years. They're under orders not to relinquish or discuss the terms of that. But I got to tell you, I think it's time that some of them stood up and said, I'm going to do an Edward Snowden here, and I'm going to break protocol. I'm going to break ranks, and I don't care whether I signed a non-disclosure agreement or not. I'm going to tell the truth, that I was fired because I refused to sign a document that said I would fire on Americans. I was fired because I stood up against this government building an army, a national standing army, in direct contravention of the Constitution of the United States of America. And that is what I swore an oath to. Not to a president. Are you aware, ladies and gentlemen, that the military today who takes an oath does not take an oath to the Constitution? They take an oath to follow the orders of the commander-in-chief, the president. And in this case, that is Barack Hussein, insane Obama. I can give you the names of dozens of generals who have come out, and they're never getting mainstream coverage. They've come out and said, something is desperately, horribly, criminally wrong here. And no one's listening. No one's listening. These are men who have spent their lives watching their back, growing eyes in the back of their head, being situationally aware, being combat aware, being politically aware. And we're ignoring their warnings. It's not just about the rules of engagement in Afghanistan. While they're simultaneously signing away our rights to defend ourselves and for our soldiers to defend themselves in Afghanistan, they're stripping you of your rights to defend yourself at home. They're passing onerous regulations. They're about to give the EPA control over all water. They have done everything in their power, short of constitutional burning, to strip you of your Second Amendment right to defend your home and your family and your community and your town and your county and your state and your federal government against tyranny. Colonel Ken Allen, call me crazy, but what on earth is the point of remaining under these rules of engagement, much less subjecting American soldiers to another set of restrictions that makes sense only in proportion to your distance from the combat zone? In other words, listen, these guys aren't in some white tower somewhere far away in Washington, D.C., where they're drinking $9 lattes and eating $32 salads for lunch. From there, it makes perfect sense. These guys are operating in a threat environment where bullets are actually flying. Blood is really flowing. Not video game blood. The blood of them and their friends. This is treason. Because the president has an obligation as the commander-in-chief to not aid and abet the enemy, but to protect and defend his own troops first and foremost, and not give the enemy an edge. And the edge that he's about to give them is U.S. forces shall not enter Afghan homes for the purposes of military operations, except under extraordinary circumstances involving urgent risk to life and limb of U.S. nationals. Ryan Zink, commander of SEAL Team 6, says about this issue, the first people who are going to look at it and review it are the enemy we are trying to fight. It's going to be a document that can be used effectively against us. This is where we either fight or go home. We're losing our ability to fight overseas. We're losing our ability to fight at home, too, ladies and gentlemen. What they're trying to pass here by restricting your right to own a plastic firearm, and if you haven't already made a call from a previous episode earlier this morning about the Senate and the House trying to pass a bill to restrict plastic firearms, that's a clear violation of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment doesn't say you can own a firearm as long as it's not plastic. It's an act of treason. I've had people say to me, boy, you use that word an awful lot. And my response is always the same. You don't use it enough. This nation should have that word on the tip of every tongue of every American citizen. The entire kibosh in Washington, D.C., and most of your state capitals are operating in blatant, open, undisguised treason. I know people don't like to hear that, but it doesn't make it less true. I know people don't want to acknowledge it, but it doesn't make it untrue. I know people don't want to take it that far, but it doesn't make it untrue. Your discomfort with it is because once you acknowledge it and you are no longer in denial, you must take some kind of action. And that's why you don't want to admit it. That's why America is afraid to use that word. And that is the truth. All right, before I close out, I want you to get your pen and paper ready. The battery station is doing their annual troop drive for the 1-8 Cav. They're stationed in Afghanistan. It's D Company, 1-8 Cavalry. They need stuff that they can get to these guys. The battery station is at 303 Washington Avenue, and that's in West Plains, Missouri, 65775. That's 303 Washington Avenue, 303 Washington Avenue, West Plains, Missouri, 65775. The email to get out information and to ask what they need is troops, TROOPS, at batterystation.com. The website is batterystation.com. The phone number is 417-257-7799. They need baby wipes and foil packs of food and things like that. You can jump onto their website. You can call over there, ask them what they need. If you can donate money, they pay for all of this out of their pocket every year. This is, I think, their 8th year doing this. I encourage you, please, America, to stand up and support our troops in any way that you can. And this is one way that you can do so where there's literally, I mean, look, bypass some other piece of junk you were going to buy on Cyber Week and donate $50 or $100 to that cause. That's a real legitimate one, right? Somebody needs that information or that product. These are guys who don't take showers for weeks and months on end. Okay. You can find us by going to americasvoicenow.org, facebook.com/americasvoicenow, and youtube.com/americasvoicenow. You can email me about this or any other topic that you like that I do on this program, or any other question that you have, at mike@americasvoicenow.org. I want your feedback. I want your input. Good, bad, crazy, not bad enough, not hard enough. Tell me what you think. I want to hear it, but I want you to use critical thinking skills.